My name is Ashley Mason Burns Meerschaert. I'm the Director of Education and Operations at Skeleton's Museum of Osteology and Skulls Unlimited. I've always been inspired by the natural world, so being involved in osteology, that doesn't seem so surprising to me. I wanted to work for Skulls Unlimited since I was about 15 years old. I was first introduced to the company when I was on summer vacation. I was watching Discovery Channel, and they were featured on the TV show Dirty Jobs. It was an episode called Skull Cleaner. Ever since I saw it, I was amazed. I didn't even know that there was a job that could combine anatomy, hands-on work, artistic work, as well as kind of the physics of putting together a skeleton and then be able to learn from that skeleton. The whole process just fascinates me from beginning to end. And when I first learned that there's a job that could combine all of those different elements, I was just absolutely fascinated. I did take a different path with my formal education. I actually went to school for, I first started off as an environmental science major, then switched to sociology, finally criminal justice. That's what I have my bachelor's in and my master's in. And I happened to apply for a job for the Museum of Osteology when I found out they were going to be moving to a second location in Orlando, Florida. So I was able to take that opportunity to work for them. But I had heard of the company for many, many years, and I decided to apply for them, and that completely derailed all of my formal education plans. But being here at the Museum of Osteology, I actually have had a chance to fulfill some of my dreams, and that includes teaching a forensic osteology course at the University of Central Oklahoma in a special program that they have. In so many ways, I've been able to do everything I wanted to do through this position, so I was so happy to finally be involved with them, and that was nearly 10 years ago now. Largely, my training has been self-taught here on the job at the museum. My formal education is in criminal justice and is focused in that area, but here at the museum, there are so many opportunities to learn every single day, and I've been able to take on several mentors throughout my time here, and I've been able to try to absorb everything that these different mentors can teach me. So that's definitely something I would recommend to our students, is to take on as many mentors as they can. While my job duties as Director of Education and Operations don't allow me to work in the processing division, in college I did start self-teaching skeletal processing and articulation, even out of my college dorm room. It was really fascinating. There was a huge learning curve, I realized. Certain specimens, by the time I did my second or third specimen, I'd really learned a lot. One specific example I can think of is the first time I cleaned a snake skeleton and articulated it, put it together, compared to the last time. The first time, my first snake took 7 months to be able to complete. My second snake took about 3 months, and my third snake took about 1 month. So you can really see how much I learned just with those few specimens, and developed some tips and techniques, learning from our articulators, and I was able to have it down. So that's one specimen I can think of specifically where there's a lot of challenges, but you have to know anatomy very well, biology, and then be very good at problem solving. And that's something I would say that all of our technicians next door are very good at, is problem solving. Here at the Museum of Osteology, a typical day for me is preparing the museum for visitors and our guests. We have a lot of school groups that we're teaching every single day. We offer many hands-on classes upstairs in our bone lab, so students can take hands-on classes in subjects like veterinary medicine. We do owl pellet dissections, even pathology classes, so learning about diseases, not just in the human body, but also in animals. So we do a lot of group reservations. We have a lot of groups doing tours, coming in and out of the museum. We also do a fair number of special events here at the museum, everything from hands-on like art classes using real bones for models, to forensics nights, which is like an adult evening event where we actually teach guests how to become forensic anthropologists. So we teach them how to analyze the age, sex, and trauma on skulls from real cases. So we even do weddings here at the museum, so we could really do anything. But that's one thing I love about the position, is no day is ever the same. There might be museum remodels going on. We might be building a new exhibit like we are now. We might have different film crews coming in, local news, doing interviews. We might have special events happening like spring break or Halloween. So there's so many new things always happening at the museum. So these last 10 years have felt honestly like no time at all. Osteology is the study of bones, It comes from the Greek word osteo, meaning bone, and ology, of course, means the study of. So it is related to the form and function of bones in living organisms. If students are interested in osteology, I would recommend taking classes in anatomy, physiology, zoology, and even forensic science. Because osteology is a subdiscipline, it's involved in many, many different sciences. To work at the Museum of Osteology and Skulls Unlimited, I wouldn't say a 4-year degree is required. It does depend on the position, but I would just say the most important thing that all of us have in common here is a passion for lifelong learning and a natural curiosity. We learn something new every single day here, and although my formal education has helped me in many different ways prepare me for the position, a lot of what we're learning is on the job, like self-teaching as well. Next door in the processing division, where they're actually by hand wiring and articulating all of the specimens, I would say that they also have a wide range of backgrounds from anthropology to even the food service industry. I would say because our job over in the processing division is so specialized, most of the time this would be treated like an apprenticeship position because the techniques can simply not be learned at many other places in the world. I would say a very strong curiosity, strong problem-focused, problem-driven approach is very helpful next door because they're having to create a specimen that's going to last, so the integrity has to be strong. You have to have an artistic eye as well. So it's many, many different aspects are involved when putting together the skeleton, even cleaning, the chemical composition, or the way that we move things through our process is a system. So I would say that there's many different disciplines or strengths that those individuals draw upon. But what I could say they do all have in common is they're very good at working with their hands. They have a really high manual dexterity. They are perfectionists as well. And they also have this natural curiosity for how things work. So they'd often be the kids when they were younger, taking things fully apart, putting them back together, seeing how they work, which makes sense biologically when you're thinking about the skeleton, the form, the function, how everything fits together. For someone who is aspiring to go into the field of osteology, I would always try to see if there's any opportunities. Being students, you're in a special position to be out there and wanting to learn new things. And I hope that there's a lot of other institutions that are going to be willing to help take you in and give you opportunities such as internships, but they're only available for those who ask for them. So I always encourage students to separate yourselves and to actually go after those opportunities because you never know what opportunities are going to come up when you combine diligence with the correct timing. Take as many opportunities as you can. Try for formal classes that you feel like will support that. But also take on as many mentors as you can and think about your networking and relationships that you have when you're pursuing those different areas because you never know where it could take you. The owner and founder of our collection and museum found his first skull specimen when he was just 7 years old. He was walking in the woods with his brother and the boys came across a blanket, and wrapped inside of this blanket was a skeleton. So they were very concerned. They thought it may have been a human skeleton, so they wanted to figure out what types of bones were inside of the blanket. So they showed their father, and while their father didn't have any knowledge of osteology, he definitely recognized the bones to not be human. He saw his son's natural curiosity, and he encouraged Jay to try to figure out what kind of animal the bones came from. So Jay went to the library and he was able to look at the cranial width of the skull, the cranial length. He was able to look at the dentition, the teeth of the animal, the eye placement, and he figured out it was the skull of a domestic dog. So that is where his whole life's work and lifelong love of osteology came from. Jay's father, he didn't have an interest in osteology, but he encouraged his son to try to figure out what type of animal the bones had come from because he saw his son's natural curiosity. So I would always encourage students to follow their passions and encourage parents to recognize their children's passions and just allow them to explore that because you never know where that could lead. If Jay's father had told him to put that skull down, put that dirty bone down, we don't learn from animals that have passed away. It's just not something that's done. We wouldn't be sitting here right now. I wouldn't have had this amazing job for the last 10 years, and we wouldn't have been able to inspire tens of thousands of students and just everyday guests here at the museum. Osteology, because it is a subdiscipline, it adds to many different sciences. the biological sciences, health sciences, and medicine. It can be used to help our understanding of diseases, pathology. It can also be used in paleontology. So a lot of what we learn about animals from the past are from animals that live currently. So all of the biomechanics are the same. So when you're looking at a fossil of a skeleton that lived millions of years ago, the same biomechanics apply to animals living today. So if you're looking at a large animal skeleton from the past, you can take clues from how large animals move today and fill them in. So kind of like filling in the blanks using the animals that live today. So bones tell us so many different stories. So our job as osteologists is to learn how to read the different markers that are on bone to try to decipher these stories that are recorded in it. Techniques and technologies that have had the most significant impacts in modern osteology would be techniques in scanning and imaging, 3D imaging and rendering, 3D printing, as well as techniques in mass spectrometry. Mass spectrometry would allow us to identify the peptides that would be specific to a species, so helping in species identification, but then also looking at the collagen and proteins in bone to try to figure out how that bone had remodeled or healed over time. In medicine, osteology informs surgical techniques. In anthropology, it can tell us a lot about past groups of people and their cultural practices. In forensic science, it can tell us a lot about a person and how they might have lived, and even causes of their death. So it would help us identify the person's age, sex, trauma signatures, as well as any underlying conditions that could have affected their bones.